Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Yeah, some people don't hear anything but the voices in their own head. I call them wrong and strong. I think it's an issue with some people and phone numbers. They can't get in their head that they might be wrong. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. I work here, not Walmart. I used to work security at a business that's involved in classified information for the government. So not a place that has the general public as customers, unless you wanted to buy some research in rockets or military plane technology and were also the government, you weren't shopping here. So definitely not Walmart. My job at the time didn't involve much. I sat at a desk, watched some cameras, did patrols, made sure alarms were functioning, and wrote occasional reports. Basically, I was there for insurance purposes and little else. That said, being near the phone was important. That's how we would get notice of alarms, and my desk phone in particular would be the one used for outgoing 911 calls in case of an emergency, so the phone always had to be manned and kept as free as possible. Yet a lot of time on my job was spent answering the phone. It rang off the hook basically constantly and only rarely from calls by people who actually meant to call us. For some reason, the security desk phone was the main number for the building, and not only that, but also a trunk line, so many numbers owned by this business, even numbers with area codes across the country, all forwarded to that particular phone for some ungodly reason. Basically, there were lots of opportunities for wrong number calls and other wastes of my time. It's usually no big deal, but every once in a while, a douchebag of some variety would call in and douche it up. One that stands out is a douchebag in Nebraska who called and just could not get it through his head that this was not Walmart. Ring. Me. Business name, Officer OP speaking. DB. Is this Walmart? We often got calls intended for a Walmart in Nebraska. I suppose some phone number the business still owns but no longer uses must be similar enough so when people misdial, I get the call. Me. No, sir, I'm afraid you have the wrong number. Have a nice day. Click. The call was obviously over. It was the wrong number. There was nothing left to say except, have a nice day. I get so many phone calls that they basically stack on top of one another. While I'm on one call, the next is already ringing, and as it could be something actually important, I get rid of wrong number calls politely but quickly. I fielded a few calls in the moments before I spoke to DB again, but he must have called back immediately and been stuck on hold for a minute. Ring. Me. Business name, Officer OP speaking. DB. What's your name? Me. Officer OP. Why? DB. I want to speak to your manager. At first, I didn't recognize his voice as I get so many calls I can't be bothered to remember wrong number calls. Me. The manager's not here. It's true, the manager had long since gone home. But you can speak to me. Is there a security concern, sir? DB. You hung up on me. I want your manager. Me. Confused. I didn't hang up on anyone. When did you call? DB. Just now. You hung up the phone after saying it's the wrong number. Me. Remembering. Now I remember. Yes, you do have the wrong number. This is the security desk at business name in Colorado. Have a nice day. Click. Ring. Me. Business name, Officer OP speaking. DB. Manager now. Me. As I said, the manager is not here. I'm in charge now, unless you have a security concern. DB. Give me their home phone number. Me. Nope. Goodbye. Click. The thing is, I don't work retail, and while part of my job is customer service, our customer is the business we do security for. Not only was this guy not my customer, he wasn't the business's customer either. So I really have no reason to give a F. The guy kept calling, but I was 100% done with this guy, so I just kept immediately hanging up the call without answering it. I've got a job to do and no patience for this nonsense. I would have blocked the number if I could. This went on for a while during my shift. Apparently the guy had nothing better to do. Then I got a call from a different number, but same Nebraska area code. I knew it was almost certainly the same guy, but I had to pick up to find out. Me. Business name, Officer OP speaking. It wasn't DB. A woman's voice replied. She didn't ask for a manager, but had that tone. You know the one. Woman. What's your name? Okay, clearly she was with DB. Me, Officer OP. There was a pause. I can practically hear the wheels turning. I imagine her giving DB a WTF you idiot look, but I'll never know. Woman. So this is not Walmart? Me. No, this is not Walmart. This is business name in Colorado. You've reached the security desk. You have the wrong number. Have a nice day. Click. Never got a call from either one of them again. I imagine the woman must have been considerably smarter than this guy. Somehow, through all of this, the guy must have still been convinced he was calling Walmart and that I was some Walmart employee just messing with him for funsies or something. And people always seem to feel like they can push around retail workers however they like. I feel sorry for whoever answered the phone if they ever did manage to figure out the correct number. And our second story. When my brother almost got kidnapped. Both my brothers and myself were homeschooled and we didn't have regular school hours, so I've lived this sub as a kid, being around town at Costco, the YMCA, and other places during school hours and running into well-meaning adults who always assume my brothers and I were playing hooky. Normally it ends with a simple explanation, and sometimes we had to go grab our mom to validate our story to whatever adult had stopped us. This time was a little different. My little brother really struggled communicating verbally as a small child, and he was constantly getting into trouble, so I spent a lot of time watching over him as protective older brothers tend to do. For context, he was about 7 and I was 9. So one day we're at a park. We're actually on a homeschool group field trip, so there's a large group of children and adults, and my little brother and myself head off exploring on our own. What we didn't realize is that the park shared a patch of grass with a grade school. Cue B-lady teacher. I can still remember sitting at the swing when suddenly I hear my brother yelling and I hear some lady screaming, so I start running. What did he do this time? I rushed over and my brother's in tears and being dragged by a female teacher from the adjoining public school. Apparently her class was using the grass field and was heading in from recess. The teacher had assumed my brother was a student and grabbed him when he wouldn't go with her to the school. I immediately tried to tell the lady we were homeschooled, we didn't belong to her school, and she should release my brother. The lady told me her name was Mrs. Davis and not to speak to her without respect. I was pretty stunned. I didn't attend public school until high school, and most adults were at least polite when talking to me. This lady was something else. She continued to pull my brother's arm very forcefully, hurting him even, and I looked around and couldn't find any homeschool moms or older homeschool children who could assist. Several of the public school children started to pipe up that they didn't recognize me or my brother, and maybe we were telling the truth. My brother's in hysterics, and the lady starts to think that maybe I'm playing hooky too. She starts asking questions. Who's my homeroom teacher? I told her the truth that I didn't have one. I was homeschooled. Please let my brother go. She reaches for my hand, and I slap that crap away. She gave me a death stare and starts ranting. I was 9, so I didn't catch all of what she said, but she was in full meltdown about my disrespect. I was starting to legit freak out, too. I didn't know where she was going to take my brother. And seeing him so distressed triggered some reptilian defense mechanism within me that I couldn't let this happen. I look around again and still don't see anyone. The lady said nasty stuff to me, but now she's taking the class and my brother back to the school. My time's running out. Then I spot a police officer. One of those school resource officers that walks around the grounds. During this whole encounter, I've been polite but forceful talking to this lady. And now seeing the policeman, I have no shame as a little boy and let myself start to cry and act terrified like I'm running from Pennywise. I run about 50 yards to the policeman. He sees me and meets me halfway. I'm screaming the whole way. She's kidnapping my brother. That lady is stealing my brother. Please save him. I didn't realize when I turned on the waterworks, quite a few people at the park took notice. As I'm hurrying back to my brother with the police officer, I see my older brother and my mother heading over very quickly from the other side of the park. Someone had seen me and knew who my mother was. Me and the cop reached the teacher at the same time my mom and my older brother did. My mom isn't shy. She grabbed my brother from the teacher. She screamed, "Who the F do you think you are? Touch my child again and see what happens." I've never seen my mother curse before or afterward except the day her mother died. The policeman stepped between my mother and the teacher. The old bag defended herself, insisting she had just confused my brother for another student. The policeman convinced my mother to just take me and my brothers and walk away. My mom is kind of one of those ladies that runs local communities. She ran the local church women's ministry, she ran the homeschool group, and so on, and she wasn't one to be ignored. She also holds insane grudges and doesn't forget. She found the principal Mrs. Davis worked for. She got a written apology from Mrs. Davis, from the principal, and from some state education official, and God knows who else. And she got a promise from the principal that no homeschool children would be harassed at that park going forward. My brother and I went back a few times on additional homeschool field trips, but we stayed away from the swings. Too much trouble. And our last story. Karen has elected herself to the HOA and is trying to make my life miserable. I live in an HOA house. The neighbor across the street hates my Sprinter van, which is parked in the driveway. She got herself elected to the HOA board, at which point I was notified I was in violation of CCRs because of the Sprinter van. There's a clause that prohibits RVs, but this clause has an exception that specifically allows any vehicle under 1 ton to be parked in the driveway. I use this van to transport my disabled father. Also, there are other Sprinter vans that are parked in driveways in this neighborhood, but the HOA will not disclose why they get a pass. It certainly appears to me that this Karen has weaponized the HOA against me specifically. Anyway, after 2.5 years of fighting this Karen and an inconclusive non-binding arbitration, HOA declined binding, and the threat of a lawsuit, I'm not giving up. I feel I have a solid case based on the language in the CCRs, so I went to my brother, to whom I explained the situation, and he agreed to help me financially to pay the legal fees. Guess who stopped harassing me and moreover got kicked off the HOA board? That's right, the horrible Karen who wanted to ruin my life. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.